There is a powerful clarity that comes when you learn to recognize envy and falsehood in others, not because you want to judge people, but because protecting your peace is essential for growth. Too often we are blind to the signs because we confuse proximity with loyalty, or because we were raised to believe that everyone smiling in our direction is a friend. But the truth is, not everyone who claps is happy for you, and not everyone who stays silent is harmless. Envy is one of the most disguised emotions, and it wears many faces. It can come wrapped in praise, dripping with sarcasm, or cloaked in support that feels slightly off. You'll begin to notice it when someone always finds a way to downplay your progress, when every win you share is followed by their story. That sounds just a little louder, or a compliment with a jab hidden underneath their words, like you're doing great for someone like you. They never say it directly, but they want you to feel small. It's in the tone, in the pauses, in the way they look away when you shine. Envy doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simmers in silence, in the way they don't respond to your good news, but suddenly become interested when you fall. Falsehood is harder to spot because it pretends to care. It mirrors your dreams. It reflects your words, but only to use them for its own advantage. False people do not love you. They love your energy, your momentum, your vision, but only as long as they can draw from it. They are not there to water your garden. They are there to pick your flowers and leave when it's empty. And the most dangerous part is they often come disguised as friends, as family, even as mentors. That's why discernment is not optional. It is essential. Pay attention to those who celebrate you behind closed doors, and those who only show up when eyes are on you. Envy cannot hide for long, because the heart always reveals itself when pressure is applied. When your success grows, so does their discomfort. And while you are building, they are calculating not how to support, but how to compete. They ask about your steps, not to cheer, but to copy, not to follow in inspiration, but to claim your effort as their own. Your spirit knows before your mind does. It's that uneasy feeling that doesn't match the words being said. It's the smile that feels hollow. It's the questions that sound supportive, but feel invasive. Trust that feeling. You are not imagining it, you are sensing it. And that's your protection, not paranoia. Energy never lies. People do. When someone shows you envy through indifference, through subtle sabotage, or through lukewarm applause, believe them. You do not owe loyalty to those who are secretly rooting against you. Protecting your peace means being honest about who belongs in your circle and who is just passing through with an agenda. It's not bitterness to remove someone who smiles in your face and stabs your name in rooms you're not in. It's wisdom, it's strength, it's necessary. Let your circle be small if it must, but let it be real. Surround yourself with people who celebrate you without fear, who don't compete with your light, but help you shine brighter. Because when you grow, you'll learn that discernment is not about distrust. It's about understanding. Not all soil is good for planting. Not every connection is meant to go with you. Some are sent only to test whether you've learned to see through the mask of envy and the voice of falsehood. And when you do, when you no longer seek approval from those who can't clap for you, you'll be free to rise without weight, free to speak without fear, and free to build a future rooted in truth, integrity, and strength. Because the only thing more powerful than achieving success is doing it with clean hands and a clear heart, surrounded by those who don't just love your light, but honor it too. Envy often hides behind false praise, and if you are not paying close attention, you might confuse that praise for real support. You might think they are cheering for you, when in fact they are merely pretending to do so, because they do not know how to deal with the fact that you are becoming more than what they expected of you, or more than they are willing to accept about themselves. They smile and say congratulations, but something in their eyes flickers. Something in their tone breaks for a second. Something in the way they speak makes you pause, but you brush it off because they said the right words. They gave you the praise you wanted to hear, and yet it felt hollow. It felt like a performance, because that is exactly what it was. And envy does not always shout. Sometimes it shows up, dressed in admiration, that is just a little too sharp, a little too forced. It shows up in compliments that feel more like comparisons, in congratulations that quickly shift the spotlight back to them. It comes in the form of those who mimic your words, who echo your ideas, but never give you the credit, who stay close just enough to benefit, but not enough to celebrate genuinely. They might like your post but never comment. They might ask how you are doing, but only to measure their own progress. They might tell others how proud they are of you, but never say it to your face. Or they might say it to your face, but talk differently when you are not in the room, because envy is sneaky. It does not want to be exposed, but it desperately wants to compete. And envy often begins where self-worth ends, when someone cannot appreciate their own journey. They begin to resent yours, and instead of doing the work on themselves, they choose to watch you, hoping you will fall, hoping you will slow down, hoping something will knock you off the path. They never had the courage to walk themselves, and when it does not happen, when you keep rising, they start to mask their discomfort as advice. They say things like, do not get ahead of yourself, or it is not that serious, or you are changing, and they will call it concern. But it is really control. False praise is about pretending to be happy for you, while quietly hoping your light dims. They cannot celebrate you, because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. Your wins remind them of what they have not accomplished. And rather than be inspired, they choose to be bitter rather than rise. They choose to resent, and in their envy, they begin to speak things that sound supportive, but feel off. They begin to question your motives, undermine your decisions, and plant seeds of doubt where once there was clarity. And that is how they get close, not through honesty, but through performance, through imitation, through manipulation. And if you are not aware, you will keep letting them close, thinking they are friends, when in truth, they are spectators waiting for a show to end. You must trust your intuition, because your spirit will feel the difference between love and envy. Even when your mind wants to believe the best about people, it is not about being suspicious. It is about being aware that not everyone who claps is doing it for you. Some are clapping because they want to be seen. Some are clapping because they hope they are next. And some are clapping just to get close enough to dim the light. You work so hard to build and protect. So when you hear praise that feels off, when you feel a chill in the middle of warmth, pay attention, because sometimes the loudest support is just the quietest envy in disguise. And knowing that might just be the protection you need to guard your peace and stay true to your path. False friends always diminish your success subtly, and it does not happen all at once. It happens slowly, quietly in the background, like a whisper. Instead of a storm, at first it feels like teasing or harmless jokes. They make light of your goals. They laugh at your ambition, not in an uplifting way, but in a way that feels like they do not believe you can actually make it. They shrug off your progress. They compare it to someone else, or remind you that others have done more, as if your journey only matters in relation to someone else's achievements, and they never seem to celebrate you fully. They might say the words, but the tone is missing, the energy is missing, the joy is missing, and over time you begin to notice that every time you take a step forward, they pull back. Every time you accomplish something new, they go quiet, or worse, they start finding flaws in your success. They say things like, anyone could do that, or you got lucky, or it's not that impressive, and they act like they are being real with you, when in reality, they are trying to shrink you down to their comfort zone. These people do not want to see you fail, but they also do not want to see you grow too much, because your growth makes them uncomfortable. It reminds them of what they are not doing. It shines a light on the parts of themselves they have ignored or denied. So instead of being proud, they become distant. Instead of cheering, they become critical. And when you tell them about your next big idea, they meet you with sarcasm. When you share your dreams, they offer warnings instead of encouragement. And it is never loud. It is never obvious. It is subtle. It's a raised eyebrow, a smirk, a half-hearted response. And it's easy to miss if you are not looking for it, because you want to believe they care. You want to believe they are just being honest or realistic. But deep down you feel it. You feel the lack of support. You feel the jealousy. They are trying to hide you. Feel the energy shift every time you level up. And it is not in your head. It is real. These false friends also tend to compete with you silently. They start doing what you do not because they love it, but because they want to match you. They copy your style, your words, your goals, but without acknowledgement. They follow your path, but never credit your influence. And if you succeed before they do, they become colder. They stop checking, they stop showing up, and you realize their friendship was never about connection. It was about control. As long as they felt ahead, they were fine. But the moment you surpassed their expectations, their support turned into silence or criticism. And they mask it. Well, they might still be around. They might still share your posts or comment something light, but the warmth is gone. The genuine joy is missing, and it's hard to face, because these are the people you trusted. These are the ones you thought would always have your back. But now you see it clearly. They only supported you when your light was dim, when your dreams were small. And now that you are becoming everything you said you would, they cannot handle it. So they pretend they are still on your side, while secretly hoping you slow down, hoping you doubt yourself, and hoping you stay small enough to not challenge their ego. Recognizing this is painful, but it's also freeing, because now you know you do not need their permission to grow. You do not need their applause to keep going, and you do not need their validation to prove your worth. Your path is yours, and anyone who truly supports you will not make you question your success. They will celebrate it with you, not compete against it, and not diminish it with subtle digs and backhanded compliments. So pay attention to how people respond when you rise, because real ones get louder in their support. False ones fade into silence or step into shadows, hoping you won't notice. They were never really for you. Watch for people who imitate but never celebrate, because there is a difference between being inspired by someone and secretly competing with them without ever admitting it. These are the ones who observe you closely. They study your habits, your words, your moves, and then they replicate them, not because they want to grow with you, but because they want to match you or surpass you, without ever giving you credit. And what makes this more dangerous is the fact that they appear to be close. They may even call themselves friends. They stay in your space. They act supportive on the surface, but underneath there is a silent race going on in their mind, where your progress is a threat and not a source of shared joy. These individuals will watch your ideas flourish, and then try to recreate the same thing in their own way, as if it was their original thought. And when you look around, you start noticing the patterns, the way they switch up their goals to mirror yours, the way they use your language, your style, your methods, while still positioning themselves as independent thinkers. What you realize is that this kind of imitation is not flattery. It is envy disguised as admiration. It is an attempt to take what you have without acknowledging where they got it from. And the reason they do not celebrate you is because celebration would mean acknowledging your impact. It would mean accepting that you were the source, the inspiration, the leader, and their ego cannot handle that. Their pride blocks them from showing real love, because to them, your success feels like a spotlight they are not standing in, and so they choose to mirror rather than praise. They copy and compete rather than contribute and support. And this is not about being territorial. This is about understanding the energy behind people's actions, because when someone truly supports you, they uplift your ideas, they give you credit, they share your wins as if they are their own, because love does not compete, love multiplies,
And when you are surrounded by genuine killing souls, your growth becomes a shared experience, not a silent war. These imitators do not clap for you, not because you did something wrong, but because deep down, they wish they were the ones doing it first. And instead of turning that feeling into motivation to find their own path, they try to walk yours. They do not build their own lane. They try to take over yours, and they might never admit it out loud. But their behavior speaks volumes. They stop talking about their goals and start echoing yours. They stop celebrating your win, start silently tracking them. They stop showing up for you and start positioning themselves as your rival without saying a word. And if you are not careful, you will think they are on your side, when in truth, they are only around to study you. This kind of energy drains you because it is wrapped in familiarity. It is hard to spot because it comes from people who smile at you, who call you friend, who act like supporters. But slowly, you start to notice the lack of joy in their face when you speak about your growth, the way they rush to change the subject, the way they only show support when others are watching, and
They think they are ahead. They distance themselves because their presence was never about love. It was about leverage. They stayed close to learn not to lift you up. And when they think they have gathered enough, they move on or try to outshine you using the very blueprint they watched you create. Deserve people who celebrate you out loud. People who are not afraid to say you inspired them. People who build with you, not against you. And the truth is, when you are doing something right, you will attract both admiration and imitation. But the difference is always in how people treat your light. Do they reflect it? Do they try to dim it? Or do they try to claim it as their own? So watch closely not just what people say, but what they do. Because some will cheer for you while quietly trying to become you. And that is not support. That is silent. Envy trying to wear a familiar face. Truthful people correct you with love. Envious people correct you with mockery. And that difference might seem small on the surface, but it reveals everything about the intent behind their words. Someone who truly cares about you will see your flaws and still speak to you with kindness. They will offer advice without trying to belittle you. They will guide you without needing to feel superior to you, because their correction comes from a place of wanting to see you grow, not from a need to feel more important than you. But the envious ones, they do it differently. They disguise their criticism as jokes. They wrap their disapproval in sarcasm. They will laugh at your mistakes, not because they find them amusing, but because it gives them a chance to feel above you for a moment. They make fun of your efforts. They point out your errors in front of others. They speak with a tone that suggests they knew better all along. And you begin to question yourself, not because they were honest, but because their delivery was designed to sting, not to heal. And when you try to talk to them about how their words made you feel, they will say you are too sensitive. They will say it was just a joke, or that you are taking it the wrong way. This is a tactic. It is a way of making you feel small while avoiding accountability. They want to correct you, but not help you. They want to challenge you, but not support you. Because if they can make you doubt yourself, then they get to stay ahead. They get to keep the upper hand. And you will find that they are quick to criticize, but slow to offer solutions. They notice what you are doing wrong, but never what you are doing right. They are loud when you stumble and silent when you succeed. And that is how you know the correction is not rooted in love, but in envy. Because love seeks restoration. It wants to lift you back up. But envy seeks superiority. It wants to keep you down. And the worst part is they might be people close to you. People you trust, people you believe want the best for you. But their actions say otherwise. They do not pull you aside to help. They speak over you in public. They use your mistakes as moments to feel smarter. And every time it happens, you lose a little bit of confidence. And they gain a little bit of satisfaction. But you must understand that correction is not the problem. The spirit behind it is the issue. And once you recognize the difference, you start to reclaim your power. Because the truth is, Growth does require feedback, but not all feedback deserves a place in your mind. If it is not spoken with care, if it is not rooted in respect, if it does not come from someone who is invested in your well-being, then it is not correction, it is control. And the people who truly love you will never humiliate you to teach you. They will not laugh when you fall. They will not mock your beginnings. They will speak truth even when it is hard, but they will do it in a way that still honors your dignity. Pay attention to who speaks when you are vulnerable. Pay attention to how they speak, because the words may sound helpful, but the tone tells the truth. And you deserve people who correct you in private, who speak with love, who guide without ego, who lead with humility, because those are the ones who want to build with you, not break you. And once you start choosing those voices over the loud ones, over the cruel ones, over the sarcastic ones, you will begin to heal, you will begin to grow, and you will begin to separate love from envy, truth from mockery, and wisdom from manipulation. And that is how you protect your peace and surround yourself with people who truly want to see you win. You will notice envy when someone always has a subtle way of turning the conversation back to themselves. No matter what you are going through or what you have achieved, they find a way to redirect the attention their way. They might let you speak for a minute or two. They might even nod and smile, but before long, they are talking about their own story, their own problems, their own version of what you just shared. And it might not seem malicious at first. It might even feel like they are trying to relate to you. But when it becomes a pattern, you start to see the truth, because every time you try to share something personal or meaningful, it becomes about them. It becomes their moment, and their emotions take the front seat, and your excitement, your vulnerability, your pain is suddenly pushed aside, so they can be the center of the room again. This is not always about arrogance. Sometimes it is deeper than that. Sometimes it comes from insecurity, from the fear that your shine will outshine them, from the fear that if you get the attention they might be forgotten. And so, instead of listening, instead of holding space for you, they compete for the spotlight. And it does not always look like hate. Sometimes it looks like someone who always needs to have the last word, someone who needs to remind you that they have done more, suffered more, or succeeded more than you. And they do it with they do it with a smile. They do it with charm. But over time you feel it. You feel drained after every conversation. You feel like you are shrinking yourself just to keep the peace. And that is not what real friendship feels like. That is not love. That is not support. That is someone using your moment to validate themselves and protect their ego. Real friends do not make your story about them. They do not rush to one-up you. They do not need to be the center of attention every single time, because they are secure enough in who they are. They do not feel threatened by your success or your pain. They understand that your moment does not take anything away from theirs. And when someone constantly redirects the focus to themselves, it is because they cannot handle your growth. They cannot handle your depth. They cannot handle your light. And so they shift it, not with insults, not with open jealousy, but with subtle distractions. They change the subject. They offer comparisons. They say things like, I went through the same thing but worse. Or I remember when I did something even bigger. And it never feels like encouragement. It feels like dismissal. It feels like invisibility. It feels like you were never allowed to just exist in your own story without someone editing it. And this is where you begin to set boundaries, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, because your story matters. Your voice matters. Your emotions matter. And you do not have to share space with people who cannot handle that. People who turn every conversation into a mirror for their own reflection. People who only listen so they can respond and never so they can understand. Those people are not safe for your spirit. They might wear the face of a friend, but their heart is in competition with you. And it is okay to notice that. It is okay to acknowledge that and take a step back. You do not owe anyone your silence. You do not owe anyone your shrinking, and you do not have to dim your light so that someone else can feel comfortable in the shadow. Protect your energy, protect your peace, and start noticing who lets you go.
You who lets you be and who truly shows up without needing to steal the moment back. Because those who can stand in your light without fear, those are the ones who belong in your circle. And those who cannot, they were never clapping for you. They were clapping for themselves, hoping your spotlight would become theirs too. People filled with envy rarely celebrate you when no one else is watching, and that is one of the clearest signs that their heart is not truly with you. They will often show support when others are around, when there is an audience, when there is a reason to be seen standing next to you. But when it is just the two of you, when the cameras are off, when the likes and attention are gone, their tone shifts, their silence grows, and the truth starts to speak in their lack of effort, their lack of sincerity, and their lack of consistency. And this is important to understand, because genuine people are consistent with or without a crowd. Their love does not perform, it persists, it does not disappear. When things get quiet, it does not fade. When the room is empty, in fact, that is when their support shines the most. They check in when no one is asking them to. They speak life into you when you are struggling, and they stand with you in the dark, not just when the lights are on. Envious people cannot do that because their support is tied to their image. It is about how it makes them look, not how it makes you feel. They want the credit of being a good friend without the effort. They want the reward of standing next to success without the responsibility of actually supporting that success. And you will notice it in small ways. You will notice that they only repost your work when it is already trending. They only mention your name when others are already giving you praise. They only show up to your events if it benefits them or puts them in a good light. And when no one is watching, they vanish. They forget, they go silent. And the difference becomes obvious over time. Real supporters make you feel seen when no one is looking. They are the ones who send you a message after a tough day, not because it is popular, but because it is personal. They are the ones who remind you of your worth when you have forgotten it yourself. They are there in the beginning, when the dream is small and uncertain. They are there in the middle, when the work gets hard and lonely, and they are still there at the top when the applause comes. But they do not change with the season. Their energy is solid, their presence is rooted, and their support is not a trend. But the envious ones cannot handle that kind of consistency, because they are constantly measuring your success against their own. They are constantly asking, why not me, instead of saying, I'm proud of you. And that inner conflict makes it impossible for them to show up in pure ways. They may not say anything harsh. They may not openly bring you down, but their absence in your moments of need speaks louder than any insult. Could they withhold love as a form of control? They pull back just enough to make you wonder if you did something wrong. And that is the trick. That is the emotional manipulation. It keeps you chasing their approval. It keeps you doubting your own light. It keeps you needing their presence, even though they are never really present. And this is why you must stop expecting genuine love from envious hearts. Stop trying to make people show up in ways they are not capable of. Stop giving chances to those who only clap when the world is watching, because your journey is too important to be surrounded by half-hearted support. Your growth is too sacred to be tied to people who only value you when it is convenient for them. And your peace is too precious to be shared with those who make you question your place. Every time you succeed, surround yourself with people who see you fully, who love you privately and publicly, who do not need an audience to be loyal, because that is what real support looks like. It is quiet when it needs to be loud when it matters, and always honest, always rooted, always real. One of the most overlooked signs of envy and falsehood in others is when someone always seems to minimize your achievements with subtle remarks that make your success feel small. They may not say anything cruel or overt. They may even smile and congratulate you on the surface, but underneath their words is a quiet intention to bring you back down to a level they feel comfortable with. You will hear things like, oh, that's nice, but it's not that big a deal. Or yeah, you did that, but anyone could do it. Or it's cool, but let's see how long it lasts. And at first these statements might sound casual or even playful, but over time they begin to eat away at your confidence, because instead of lifting you, they start to chip at the edges of your self-belief, not through direct attack, but through consistent subtle dismissal. This behavior is often disguised as humility advice, or just being realistic, but it is none of those things. It is the voice of someone who cannot stand to see you fully recognize your own worth, because your confidence threatens their insecurity, your joy reminds them of their dissatisfaction, and your growth challenges the image they have built of themselves as being ahead, or in control. So they use soft jabs and light-hearted jokes to level the playing field, to bring the attention back to themselves, or to make sure you don't get too comfortable in your success. They say things like, don't forget where you came from, or don't let it get to your head, not because they care about your humility,
but
because they are afraid of your power. And this is what you must learn: people who truly love you will celebrate you loudly and sincerely. They will not feel the need to shrink your moments of victory. They will not throw shade, disguised as concern. They will be proud of you, not threatened by you.
but
And they will speak life into your wins, because they know your light does not dim theirs. But envious people are not wired that way. They are constantly calculating where they stand in comparison to you. And when you rise, their first instinct is not joy. It is discomfort, not because you hurt them, but because your elevation reminds them of everything they are not doing, or everything they feel they should have by now. And instead of working on themselves, they try to pull you back down just enough to keep things familiar, just enough to stay above you.
but even if only in their mind.
And what makes this dangerous is how easily it can confuse you. You start to question whether you are too proud or too ambitious. You begin to feel guilty for sharing your progress. You begin to minimize your own voice before anyone else even gets the chance to. And suddenly your light grows dim, not because it faded, but because you kept placing it in front of people who could not stand to see it shine. And that is how
Indie works.
it does not always scream. Sometimes it whispers, and those whispers can become the loudest doubt in your mind. If you let them, but you do not have to let them. You can recognize the pattern and protect your space. You can learn to tell the difference between honest feedback and disguised resentment, between loving honesty and manipulative sarcasm, between support and subtle sabotage, because that difference will determine the quality of your circle and the peace of your journey. You deserve to be surrounded by people who cheer for you, not compete with you, who lift you up, not hold you back, who add to your fire, not water it down. And when you find that kind of energy, protect it, cherish it, and reflect it, because love does not shrink others to grow itself. Love rises together. Love multiplies success. Love celebrates without condition. And when you live in that kind of truth, there is no room for envy, only expansion, only elevation, only.
When you learn to recognize envy and
Falsehood in others, you begin to reclaim your emotional space and protect your peace. You no longer confuse sarcasm for support. You no longer tolerate disguised resentment as honest concern. And most importantly, you stop handing your light to people who only want to dim it. Your growth, your joy, your wins are not a threat to the right people. And once you surround yourself with those who cheer from the heart, who correct you with love, who support you in silence and in spotlight, your life becomes clearer, your path becomes lighter, and your spirit begins to heal. You are not here to make others comfortable at the cost of your own light. You are here to rise, and those who are meant to walk with you will never make you question whether you deserve to shine. So walk forward boldly, listen closely, and let truth, not envy, guide your relationships and your journey.